Welcome to the first episode of Question Reality. Today's topic is Chernobyl. Now, I've done so much research that it would give you nightmares. But basically, if you think that you know what Chernobyl is, take all that information and throw it in the garbage can. Okay? If you watch the 2019 miniseries of Chernobyl, great, you're uneducated by that. That only has just some facts in it, and they exaggerate it greatly. It's, in my opinion, it's pretty bad. While a character named Boris, if you haven't watched the miniseries, he did have a funny temper tantrum. But it's not really. It's kind of accurate, but not exactly. So I am here to explain. My phone keeps on going dark here. I have come to explain the truth behind Chernobyl. So, basically, let me explain my little episode here. The thing about Question Reality is that the information that we have, is it accurate to today? Let's just say the Black Plague wasn't actually the Black Plague. It was the swine flu. We thought that it was the Black Plague, but it was the swine flu. Okay, now that's a bad example. Basically, what you think you know is what you don't know, if that makes any sense. Okay, you think that you know something, alright? Let's just say that you know that, that water consists of hydrogen and oxygen. But what if you thought different? What if you thought 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen? See, you see what I mean? You have to fact check stuff that you either aren't sure of, or just fact check stuff in general. So say we're fact checking Chernobyl. So, in short, it's a reactor plant, a nuclear reactor plant that happened in 1986. Now for those who don't understand some stuff, basically to put it in a nutshell, safety test, make power reactor go boom boom. I'm sorry, but oh, by the way, if any Chernobyl survivors are watching this, please tell me if I got anything wrong, or now I know I'm supposed to make this show not wrong, but just because I do, or you can give me your personal experience, maybe even write a book on it. I think that would be pretty cool. There are books of Chernobyl, there are movies of Chernobyls. I meant to say Chernobyl. Do not watch the movies because they aren't exactly accurate. I watched Chernobyl Diaries. That's actually a pretty good movie. Although everybody dies in it. But there are mutants in it. Mutants. And I can confirm to you, there are no mutants in Chernobyl. Not the mutants that they portray in Chernobyl Diaries. Although it does appear that they did extensive research while making Chernobyl Diaries. So, let's just go to the beginning. The very beginning. Chernobyl is a nuclear power plant that is located in the city of Pripyat in Ukraine, Russia. So this happened during 1 o'clock, I believe. See, fact check here. Handy dandy phone here. It says here. Okay, it says here. Oh, wait a minute. It doesn't say what time it is. Oh no, wait. Um, Basically, the whole thing came from, ironically, a safety test. Yeah, a safety test. What it says here, the reason why I already know this information, but the reason why I'm looking it up just because I forgot something or misunderstood something. It says here, the accident started during a safety test on an RMBK type nuclear reactor, which was commonly used throughout the Soviet Union. Yeah, this is back in 1986. The test was a simulation of electrical power outage to aid the development of safety procedure for maintaining cooling water circulation until the backup generators could provide power. There's a little mistake there. So, just a fun fact, actually. They're still using the RMBK reactors, those type of models, except they retrofitted it. So, I guess it's cheaper, I suppose. I don't really know. Where was I? Okay. This operation gap was about 1 minute and had to be identified as a potential safety problem that could cause the nuclear reactor core to overheat. That is exactly what happened. It had a meltdown. 3 such tests had been conducted since 1982, but had failed to provide a solution on the 4th attempt. This test was delayed by 10 hours, so the operating shift that had been prepared was not present. During the test preparation, the nuclear power plant unexpectedly dropped to a near zero level. The operators were able to restore power level, but in doing so, they put the reactor in a highly unstable condition. The risks were not made evident in the operating instructions, despite a similar incident occurring years before, and they proceeded with the test even though the power level was still lower than prescribed in the procedure. See, I didn't know that there was a failed procedure before 1986 on something like this. Upon test completion, they triggered the reactor shutdown, but a combination of reactor design and construction flaws caused an uncontrollable nuclear chain reaction instead. So basically, what it's saying here is that there were design flaws in this test, which ultimately led to its demise. A large amount of energy was suddenly released, vaporizing superheated cooling water and rupturing the reactor core in a highly destructive steam explosion. So, some people refer to it as an explosion, some of it refer to it as a meltdown. I prefer to call it both, to be honest, because that's pretty much what it was. Um, this was an immediate This was immediately followed by an open-air reactor core fire that released considerable airborne radioactivity contamination for about 9 days that precipitated into parts of the USSR. I said S twice because that's what it says, USSR, in Western Europe, before finally beginning before be, before being finally contained on May 4th, 1986. The fire gradually released about the same amount of contamination as the initial explosion. That's pretty bad. And I lost where I was. Okay, here we go. As a result of risking ambient radiation levels off-site on a 10-kilometer, also for you Americans, like me, 6.2-mile radius. 6-mile radius exclusion zone was created 36 hours after the accident. About 49,000 people from Pripyat, the exclusion zone, were evacuated from the area, primarily from... Let me start that over again. About 49,000 people were evacuated from the area, primarily from Pripyat. The exclusion zone was later increased to 30 kilometers, 19-mile radius, when a further 68,000 people were evacuated from the wider area. Another thing, whenever the reactor initially exploded, the Soviet government didn't tell people immediately. I'm not sure why. Maybe not to create a panic. I don't know why. And there might be some people out there who say that something else happened. There isn't, like, conspiracy theories or something like that. I don't know. I personally think that this is just an accident. Although some things I have to agree that most likely were planned, but not here. The reactor explosion killed 2 of the reactor operating staff in the emergency response that followed. 134 firemen and station staff were hospitalized with acute radiation syndrome due to absorbing high doses of ionizing radiation. Wouldn't want to be them. 134 men. Yikes. And if you've seen the Chernobyl miniseries, there's this fireman that picked up graphite, which held bars of uranium to put into the reactor core. He held it for a little bit and then asked his comrade, "What is this?" And then his comrade said, "I don't know, don't..." He said the curse word, I'm just going to say mess. He said, "Don't mess around with that." So he threw it onto the ground. A few minutes later, his skin was starting to burn off. So he was taken to the hospital. Unfortunately, he got, radiation sickness. I don't know if that actually happened in real life, but that's what was portrayed in the miniseries. So, I mean, due to absorbing high doses of these 134 men, 28 died in the days to months afterward, and approximately 14 suspected radiation-induced cancer deaths followed within the next 10 years. Dang! That's just... Can you imagine that? I don't want to imagine that. One Chernobyl survivor said that his comrades, you could say that they melted from the inside. Another Chernobyl reactor staff said he didn't think anything of it at first until he heard his comrades screaming. And to me, that just melted my heart, because, like, no, my heart was broken because, like, he heard his comrades screaming because of the explosion. Now, keep in mind that it was nobody's fault. Okay, well, it might be somebody's fault, but it was a flaw. They didn't do anything. They might have done something wrong. But yeah, it was more of an accident than anything on purpose. Nobody was doing it on purpose because of what memes say, like lower the nuclear reactor because of a low pay or some. Although conspiracy theorists might disagree with that. Among the wider population, in excess of 15 childhood thyroid cancer deaths were documented as of 2011. The United Nations Scientific Community of the Effects of Atomic Radiation, UNSCEAR, that's apparently the acronym, has at multiple times renewed all the published research on the incidents and found that at present fewer than 100 documented deaths are likely to be attributable to increased exposure to radiation. Let me get some water. That's why I was stuttering so bad. Anyways, determining the total eventual number of exposure-related deaths is uncertain based on the linear no threshold model, a contested statistical model, which has also been used in estimate of low-level radion and air pollution exposure. Model predictions with greatest confidence values of the eventual total death toll in the decades ahead from Chernobyl releases vary from 4,000 fatalities solely wait, what is that? How do I say that? Hold up a minute. I'm so sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce this.
Solely.
Not solely. Oh gosh, I lost my place. Where did it go? I just lost my thing here. Oh, okay. Here we go. Chernobyl releasing vary from 4,000 fatalities when solely assessing the three most contaminated former Soviet states to about 9,000 to 1,600 fatalities when assessing the total confinement continent of Europe. I swear, I'm not sure why I'm stuttering so badly here. Also, I feel like 16,000 fatalities is a bit of an inflation here. Although I could be wrong here. As I said, this is supposed to question reality, question what you know. So, you know, this might be wrong, but this might be right. Also, should you trust the HBO miniseries? Short answer, no. You should not. Movies and shows tend to dramatize stuff, although there are some facts. Some of them are greatly exaggerated, and my watch just beeped because it just turned an hour. Anyways, to reduce the spread of radioactive contamination from the wreckage and protect it from weathering the protective Chernobyl nuclear power plant sarcophagus. Oh, I'm sorry. From weathering. The protective Chernobyl nuclear power plant sarcophagus was built by December 1986. It also provided radiological protection for the crews of the undamaged reactors at the site, which continued operating due to the continued deterioration of the sarcophagus. It was further enclosed in 2017 by the Chernobyl New Safe Confinement, a larger enclosure that allows the removal of both the sarcophagus and the reactor debris, while containing a radioactive hazard nuclear cleanup is scheduled for completion in 2065. 2065! Depending on whenever I post this, I might post this on 2019 or 2020. 2065. I would be 2064. Wait, I'd be 20. I'd be 64. Gosh. I wonder what I would look like. Probably look awesome as ever. Anyways, the Chernobyl disaster is considered the worst nuclear power plant accident in history, both in terms of cost and casualties. The struggle to safeguard against hazards immediately after the accident, together was, with later decontamination efforts of the surrounding, ultimately involved more than 500,000 personnel and cost an estimated 18 billion Soviet rubles, roughly US $68 billion in 2019, adjusted for inflation. No, adjusted for inflation. Inflation, inflation, inflation. Of course. What they say, money makes the world go round. Which is obviously not true. The axis of the... we're not talking about astronomy right now. Money does not make the world go round. If you thought that, if you actually thought that the world made the money go... If you thought that money made the world go round, you definitely want to fact check that, because that is not true. Anyways, the accident prompted safety upgrades on all remaining Soviet-designed RMBK reactors, of which 10 continued to be operational as of 2019. Okay, so a quick comment on this is that, yes, as I said, they retrofitted it, kind of upgrade, just whatever. But what caused the accident were uranium rods going inside of this, I guess you could call it, let me find an example here. This water bottle over here, my water bottle. So there are these bars. Here's something. Let's pretend like there are 4,000 of these, I think. And imagine these made out of graphite, and that's radioactive. So these are superheated, and it's going into water. Okay. And whenever the water level was being lowered, like completely drained, the metal beams, the graphite beams, melted through the little things that they were being held into. So then they poured in the water again, but since water on top of the heat makes steam, it created a steam explosion. So you can see where that problem came from. So yeah, it said that the three rest of the reactors are still functional. I am not exactly sure if that is true or not. I kind of hope not, but I kind of do. But whatever. Let me just put this over here. I'm not even sure what it's going. Over there. My mouth is dry again. Okay, back to work. We now return with our regular scheduled program. At 1:23:04, the test began. 4 of the main circulating pumps, MCP, were active. Of 8 total, 6 were normally. Of the 8 total, 6 were normally activated under regular operation. The steam to the turbines was shut off, beginning a rundown of the turbine generator. The diesel generator started and secretly picked up loads. The generators were to have completely picked up the MCP's power needs by 1:23:43. In the interim, the power for the MCPs was to be supplied by the turbine generator as it coasted down. As the momentum of the turbine generator decreased, so did the power produced for the pumps. The water flow rates decreased, leading to an increased formation of steam voids in the coolant flowing up through the fuel pressure tabs. So basically, to simplify that for you, I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this as an example. Watch the water. It'll drain. Hope you can see that, because actually there's just a little bit left. So I'll just show you. Hopefully you can get a better look at it. So yeah, basically all the water was drained out, leading, as I said, the graphite bars, to drop down and melt through the core. And as I said before, they tried to put the water back in. I can't put the water back in the water model, which ultimately led to all the steam and pressure building up from the steam, exploding the lid of the thing, of the reactor core. So let's get to some important parts. I'm just going to leave out some things because okay. The reason why is because I kind of want to cut this video a little bit short. Because then it pretty much just won't upload at all. It would take like 8,000 days for this thing to upload. Because of, first off, how bad our internet is. Second, how long the video is. However long the video is, the longer it takes to upload, which is absolutely ridiculous. So anyways, at 1:23:40, as recorded by SKALA, Centralized Control System, as SCRAM, Emergency Shutdown, of the reactor was initiated. As the experiment was wrapping up, the SCRAM was started, and the AZ5 button, also known as the APS5 button, of the reactor emergency protection system was pressed. This engaged the drive mechanism on all control rods to fully insert them, including the manual control rods that had been withdrawn earlier. That's a mistake. The mechanism would be used even to routinely shut down the reactor after the experiment for planned maintenance, after the SCRAM likely produced the sharp increase in power. However, the precise reason why the button was pressed when it was not certain, as only the deceased Akimov and Toptunov partook in that decision, though the atmosphere in the control room was calm at that moment. Meanwhile, the RMBK designers claimed that the button had to be pressed after the reactor had already begun to self-destruct. So yeah. Here you can see like the little steam plumes. Just wait for it. There we go. So yeah. Steam plumes continued to be generated days after the initial explosion. When the AZ button was pressed, the insertion of the control rods into the reactor core began. Here goes the meltdown part. The control rod insertion mechanism moved the rods 0.4 meters per second, 1.3 feet seconds. So that the rods took 18 to 20 seconds to travel the full height of the core, about 7 meters, 23 feet. The bigger problem was the design of the RMBK control rods, each of which had graphite neutron moderator section attached to the end to boost the reactor output by displacing water when the control rod has been fully withdrawn from the reactor, i.e. when a control rod was at the maximum extraction, a neutron moderating graphite extension was centered in the core with 1.25 meters, 4.1 feet columns of water above and below it. Basically, what that says is that the bars had graphite tips, graphite neutron moderator section attached to its end to boost the reactor output. Consequently, injecting a control rod downward into the reactor in the scram initially displaced neutron absorbing water in the lower portion of the reactor with neutron moderating graphite. Graphite is radioactive and so is uranium. Thus, an emergency scram initially increased the reaction rate in the lower part of the core. This behavior had been discovered when the initial insertion of control rods in another RMBK reactor at Ignalina. How do I say that? Ignalina nuclear power plant in 1983 induced a power spike. Procedural countermeasures were not implemented in response to Ignalina INSAG-7 later stopped. Quote, apparently there was a widespread view of the conditions under the positive scram effect would be important that would never occurred. However, they did appear in almost every detail in the course of the actions leading to the Chernobyl accident. Unquote. A few seconds later into the scram, a power spike did occur, and the core overheated, causing some of the fuel rods to fracture, blocking the control columns and jamming the control rods at third insertion. When the graphite is radioactive, water displacer still in the lower part of the core. Within 3 seconds, the reactor output rose above 530 MW. I don't know what MW means, so let's look that up. MW. Megawatts. It's a unit of measurement. A megawatt is a unit of measuring power that is equivalent to 1 million watts. 1 megawatt is equivalent to the energy produced by 10 automobile engines. Megawatt hour MWH is equal to 1,000 kilowatts an hour. kWh, it is equal to 1 kilowatts of electricity used continuously for 1 hour. I'm gonna be honest with you, I have no idea what that just said. All I know is that it's megawatts and that it's a measurement of power, and that's all we need to know right now. Also, it says here 10 automobile engines. What type of automobile engines? Are there different types of automobile engines? Be more specific, please. Anyways, so back to this. The subsequent course of events was not registered by instruments. I'm not talking about musical instruments, I'm talking about measuring instruments. It has been reconstructed through mathematical simulation. For the simulation, the power spike would have caused an increase in fuel temperature and steam buildup, leading up to a rapid decrease in steam pressure. This caused the fuel cladding to fail, releasing the fuel elements into the coolant and rupturing the channels in which these elements were located. So in short, basically, I told you this, that the readings of the measurement readings of the temperature and speed buildup, steam buildup, had a lot of steam pressure. So whenever it says releasing the fuel elements into the coolant and rupturing the channels, it means like, what I think it means is once the pressure is finally built up, it blew the lid right off of the top of the nuclear reactor. Oh, if you didn't know, there are lids on nuclear reactors. Well, on this at least. I don't know about other nuclear reactors, but in Chernobyl it is. So here's a little animation of the aftermath in a little X-ray just to show you some of the destruction. Not pretty. Um, the reactor lid upper biological shield, nicknamed Elena, lying on its side in the explosion crater, overlaid, or I mean, are overlaid are the pre-explosion pistons of the steam tank's reactor hull floor and roof trusses. As the scram was starting, the reactor output jumped around 3,000 MW, which, if you forgot, it's megawatts. MW thermal 10 times its normal operation output. The indicated last reading on the power meter on the control panel, some estimate the power spike may have gone up 10 times higher than that. It was not possible to reconstruct the precise sequence of the process that led to the destruction of the reactor and the power unit building, but steam explosion, like the explosion of a steam boiler. If you study steam trains like I do, you will know about steam explosions in boiler explosions on steam trains, boiler explosions using steam just in general. The steam can be very, very dangerous, especially steam burns. Ouch! I've never had one, but I heard that they are super, super painful, and I don't want to experience one. Anyways, like the explosion of a steam boiler from excess vapor pressure appears to have been the next event. There is a general understanding that it was explosive steam pressure from the damaged fuel channels escaping into the reactor's exterior cooling structure that caused the explosion that destroyed the reactor casing, tearing off and blasting the upper plate, called the upper biological shield, to which the entire reactor assembly is fastened. Through the roof of the reactor building, fastened through the roof of the reactor building. This is believed to be the first explosion that many heard. The explosion ruptured further fuel channels, as well as severing most of the coolant lines feeding the reactor chamber, and as a result, the remaining coolant flashed to steam and escaped the reactor core. So yeah, that's not good. Total water loss in combination with a high positive void coefficient further increased the reactor's thermal power. A second, more powerful explosion occurred about 2 or 3 seconds after the first. This explosion dispersed the damaged core and effectively terminated the nuclear chain reaction. The explosion also compromised more of the reactor containment vessel, and injected hot lumps of graphite moderator. As I said before, graphite is radioactive. The ejected graphite and the demolished channels still in the remains of the reactor vessel caught fire on exposure to air. Gravity greatly contributed to the spread of the radioactive fallout. There's nothing to fall out for. I'm sorry. And if any Chernobyl survivors watching that and know about Fallout 4, I'm sorry. I just had to make that joke. Just because. And the contamination of outlining areas. You know what's strange? is that I mentioned Fallout 4, and we're talking about a number, like a reactor core named Unit 4. Like, it's the number 4th reactor. Fallout 4, Unit 4. Coincidence? I think not! Anyways. According to observers outside Unit 4, burning lumps of material and sparks shot into the air above the reactor. Some of them fell onto the roof of the machine, hell, and started... Oh, I thought that's, I thought I was about to say hell broke loose, but hell and... hell and started a fire. Like, what? But apparently it said some of them fell onto the roof of the machine hall instead of hell, and started a fire. About 25% of the red-hot graphite blocks and overheated material from the fuel channels was ejected. Parts of the graphite blocks and fuel channels were helped the reactor building. As a result of the damage to the building and airflow through the core was established by the high temperature of the core. The air ignited the hot graphite and started the graphite fire. A graphite fire. That is bad, and it looks like this video is going to be an hour long. After the larger explosion, a number of employees at the power station went outside to get a clearer view of the extent of the damage. One such survivor, Alexander Yuvchenko, recounts that once he stepped outside and looked upwards towards the reactor hall, he saw a, quote, very beautiful, unquote, laser-like beam of, blue beam light caused by the ionized air glow that appeared to flood up into infinity. That doesn't sound very good. Sorry if I have, dead reactions here. I've become a living zombie. Wait. Zombies aren't living. Living dead. Whatever. There were initially several hypotheses about the nature of the second explosion. One view was that the second explosion was caused by the combustion of hydrogen, which had been produced either by the overheated system, synchronized reaction, or by the reaction of the red-hot graphite with steam that produced hydrogen and carbon monoxide. Another hypothesis by Chernobyl, published in 1998, about 2 years after the explosion, was that the second explosion was the thermal explosion of the reactor as a result of the uncontrollable escape of the fast neutrons caused by the complete water loss in the reactor core. A third hypothesis, I wonder if there's a fourth one. If there is a fourth one, I will eat my shirt. A third hypothesis was that the second explosion was another steam explosion. According to this version, the first explosion was a more minor steam explosion in the circulating loop, causing a loss of coolant flow and pressure that in turn caused the water still in the core to flash steam. This second explosion then caused the majority of the damage to the reactor and containment building. There is no fourth hypothesis. This shirt will remain uneaten. There are explosion hypotheses. We can just skip over that because hypothesis won't get us anywhere right now. Because we have this right now. We don't need to look at the hypotheses at the moment. I mean, you can if you want to, but let's just skip out on it on this video. So the rest of the information that I'm about to give you does not come from this. Oh, I need to show you something here. Let me see if I can just... Save this image, go to my gallery. Take a look at this. See if it focuses. Yeah, that's Chernobyl. Whenever the nuclear reactor exploded. Obviously, this is like the aftermath. So let's just discuss something here. In the HBO miniseries, uh, this guy, the leader of Chernobyl or something, went up to the roof of the Chernobyl explosion of the building, and there was black smoke, and there were fires in Chernobyl. Although by that time that he was on the roof, all the fires were out. This was a steam explosion, not a fiery explosion. So there shouldn't have been black smoke. There should have been steam rising up, white steam. So, kind of a big mistake there. Um, and the victims in the HBO series are extremely, extremely exaggerated. Like, they look like Anakin Skywalker from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Like, I made a Twitter post about it, and I'll just show it to you. And to be honest, I really can't tell which one looks worse. Like, I wouldn't want to be either of them. So I'm just go to my Twitter profile. If you haven't been on Twitter with me, where have you been? What have you been doing? Have you been making videos or something? So that's alright, but I post some pretty funny stuff. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah, it's way deep down here. I make lots of tweets. Wait. Where's my tweet? Yo, did Twitter literally just... Okay. Okay, so we're about to get a little bit disturbing here. The images will get a little bit disturbing. If you have a weak stomach, look away. I'll tell you when you can look back. But this is the actor's portrayal of the the, the victims. It looks terrible. And this is what the victims would actually look like. So yeah, that's the one that looks more orangish is real. The one that's bluish, fake. A Chernobyl doctor who watched the HBO series actually said that this one looks like a body painter painted on them. And I have to agree with her. Like, that just looks terrible. Like, did they even look at the real victims? I don't know. There was also a helicopter crash in the HBO series and in real life. Now, in the HBO series, the helicopter crashed into a crane while trying to put out the fire. Now, that kind of happened in real life, except I don't think that they were putting out the fire, although the helicopter did crash into a crane. but it wasn't on the day that Chernobyl exploded. It was a few days afterwards. In fact, I think it was a month afterwards. But either way, they crashed in the same fashion. So at least they kind of had a fact there. Um, Another one was hmm, yes. They said, "Do you taste metal?" Now, you wouldn't immediately taste metal, actually. A worker at Russia, not a worker, but a tourist at Russia in the city of Pripyat, which is where Chernobyl was. Um, he said that originally you would taste lemon, and they were dropping lead onto the reactor uh, to absorb the radiation, and that's whenever they tasted metal because they were inhaling the lead in their lungs, which is really bad. Oh, speaking of inhaling that stuff in your lungs, don't smoke. Smoking is bad for you. In fact, I heard that your lungs could become radioactive after you smoke. I'm not exactly sure about that. Oh, something that you come in contact every day that's radioactive is some stone. Some, are you for this? Granite. You can find that in marble, certain type of marble, certain types of tiles, and bananas. Bananas are radioactive. They don't have granite in it, I don't think, but their metabolism gives them their radioactivity, I suppose you could say. That's what I read. Brazil nuts are also radioactive. And, let's... Anyways, basically you come into a lot of stuff that is radioactive in your everyday life. It's not enough to hurt you, although if you stay there long enough, or if you eat too many bananas, yeah, you can definitely get hurt. And X-rays, they are radioactive as well. So that includes dental, chest, any X-rays in general. They're radioactive. Um, so in the HBO miniseries, there were the liquidators um, that had to clear off the graphite off the roof. But before they did that, they sent a robot called the Joker, made by Germany. That malfunctioned because of the radiation. And that is actually true. However, in the miniseries, they only showed one robot, and that was just the Joker. But there were actually different robots on the roof cleaning off the graphite. But of course, they failed because the radiation messed up with them. So these brave men, brave men, and I pay respects to them. They're heroes. Anyways, basically it was kind of a suicide mission in a way. Um, what they had to do is that they had to put on a suit, and it had lead on it to absorb the radiation, and they had to spend 90 seconds on the roof using shovels to clear off the graphite. 90 seconds on the roof before running off of the roof to avoid radiation sickness. But in the show, well, yes, it did follow it in real time. It showed this guy growing progressively weaker as 90 seconds went on. And whenever he finally went into the building, he looked at his boot and it was torn. So one of his comrades said, "Comrade Nick, you're done." Later on, uh, some people refused to leave Pripyat, despite the radiation. There's this old babushka, which is Russian for grandma. Uh, she refused to leave, both in real life and in the miniseries. She drinks from the same well that radiation is crossed, she grows mushrooms and she eats them and drinks them. She said the taste fine, taste the same. I just, I wouldn't ever eat that. Just no, just that's just a no-no to me. um, Same thing with Fukushima, which is another nuclear meltdown. It happened in 2011 in Japan. I don't think that it was as serious. Like, in my opinion, it wasn't as serious as Chernobyl, as in casualties and how far it spread. But yeah, both of them are pretty darn bad. So, if you happen to be from Japan and you're a survivor of Fukushima, tell me what it was like. You know, give me some information. If you're a survivor of Chernobyl or Fukushima, give me all the information that you can. Um, and there is some footage that I found of Chernobyl. Um, and what I saw, I just kept on having flashbacks of it. I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible. And I went on Google Maps to see if there were any nuclear plants around me. There were. I was like, oh my god, we're on a landmine. So, yeah, just in case that explodes, we're doomed, I suppose. Um, Anyways, actually, hold on a minute. There is a recording of during the evacuation, um, of Pripyat. There was a woman on a speaker, warning people about the radiation and what to do. There's an audio file here. Um, Let me just do this. Okay. Looks like this thing will be an hour. Come on. Okay. I know that in the beginning she says, "Attention, attention." So just listen to this. Ready?
Внимание! Внимание, внимание! Внимание, внимание! Внимание, внимание! Уважаемые товарищи! Городской совет народных депутатов сообщает, что в связи с аварией на Чернобыльской атомной электростанции в городе Припяти складывается неблагоприятная радиационная обстановка.
Let me just pause that real quick. I definitely heard the words Pripyat and Chernobyl. Look, we've hit 1 hour. We've actually hit 1 hour. So, the beginning sentence was attention, attention. So let's just resume.
Партийными и советскими органами, воинскими частями принимаются необходимые меры. Однако, с целью обеспечения полной безопасности людей и в первую очередь детей возникает необходимость провести временную эвакуацию жителей города в пункты Киевской области. Для этого каждому жилому дому сегодня, 27 апреля, начиная с 14:00 часов, будут поданы автобусы в сопровождении работников милиции и представителей горисполкома. Рекомендуется с собой взять документы, крайне необходимые вещи, а также, на первый случай, продукты питания. Руководителями предприятий и учреждений определен круг работников, которые остаются на месте для обеспечения нормального функционирования города. Все жилые дома на период эвакуации будут охраняться работниками милиции. Товарищи, временно оставляя свое жилье, не забудьте, пожалуйста, закрыть окна, выключить электрические и газовые приборы, перекрыть водопроводные краны. Просим соблюдать спокойствие, организованность и порядок при проведении временной эвакуации.
Okay, I think in one part she said evacuation, and I think in one part she also said radioactive. I can't understand. I couldn't really understand, and the audio file isn't really that fantastic. There's gotta be some kind of like. Okay. It's chilling, really. Attention, attention, attention. Attention, attention. Attention, attention. Dear comrades, the City Council of the People's Deputies informs that due to an accident at Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the city of Pripyat, and adverse radiation conditions evolve by party and Soviet bodies by police units. Necessary measures are being taken. However, in order to provide a complete safety for the people, especially for children, it is necessary to temporarily evacuate city residents to evacuation points in Kiev Oblast. In order to do this, to each apartment house today on April 27th, starting at 2 p.m. Starting at 2 p.m. Buses will be provided. Escorted by the military officers and representatives of party's city evacuation committee. I knew that there was some. It is recommended you take with you IDs, basic necessities, and food stuff for the first time. By the evacuates of enterprises and institutions, list of workers are provided. that stay to ensure normal functioning of the city. All apartment houses during evacuation will be guarded by military officers. Paramount, while temporarily leaving your houses, please do not forget to close windows and turn off electrical, gas, and equipment. To close taps. Please remain calm, be organized, and maintain order during temporary evacuation. Temporary. Yeah, right. But see, I think I definitely heard what I think I heard. Temporary. Sure. Just go ahead, say that. I mean, they're the Russian government, and it's not like they would lie to you, right? I'm sorry. Um, in the HBO miniseries, they had to kill domestic animals to prevent them from spreading radiation. And I think that actually happened in real life. I'm not positive about that, but if that's true, then that is just... it's sad, but unfortunately it's a necessary thing to do. And that kind of hit hard on me because on December 20th, 2018, my dog passed away. Not from radiation or being killed, but she died from old age. But she was the best dog that I could ever ask for. She was so sweet. She was just an angel. There was a dog with a litter of puppies in the thing. It happened off screen. The shooting happened off screen, but it's still a heart-wrenching moment. It's just, you know, HBO, if you're watching this, that's kind of unnecessary to put in, but if you're trying to stay realistic, like I want most of my movies and shows to be, I guess you had no choice but to put that in there, did you? Speaking of movies and shows being based off of real events, I absolutely hate it whenever they dramatize it. Yeah, their character development and stuff like that, but I feel like they're just going overboard, and I want what actually happened. Actors portraying as the real people who was in there, and you'd be there kind of like in a spectator mood I'm a spectator kind of mode. I think that would look really neat, and actually great practical effects instead of what I showed you over there. That's just nah. So yeah, that's it. That is it on Question Reality. I hope you enjoyed this 1 hour video. And remember, question reality. Question everything. Forget everything that you know. Research it again. See you later.